the Glendale folks running that operation. So it's my pleasure to present you with this proclamation. Who gets it? We'll have the ladies. Ladies, forget Ron. Come on up, ladies. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You may have a few words.
You get to speak, too, since you received it.
Assistant Chief DePompa.
Mr. Mayor and members of council, we really appreciate you taking the time to give these young men and women recognition. You know, they are not only the 911 lifeline to the community, but to the police and firefighters out in the field. They're our lifeline on the radio system, and everything we do is dependent upon them being able to get us the resources we need and the information we need to do our job. Also, often they're the unsung and unseen heroes, but for that reason, we really appreciate you taking the time to recognize their efforts here today. And from the police department, we have two of our very fine dispatchers. We have Mary Gonzalez and Sally Chong, and we're very pleased to introduce them to you today, and again, very appreciative of your recognition. And with that, I'll turn it over to Battalion Chief Scoggins to introduce his personnel.
And tell us how many cities we serve.
Absolutely. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. Tonight, it's my pleasure to first of all introduce to you who we have representing Verdugo Fire Communications Supervisor Don Wise, Fire Communications Operator Sean O'Connor, and Fire Communications Operator Sarah Cohan. Verdugo is really grown over the last few years. As was mentioned earlier, Verdugo is now dispatching for over 800,000 residents in 11 cities, 126 square miles. Last year we dispatched over 58,000 calls, and this year is going to be even more. The last 2 months were both over 5,000 calls each, which added up over 12 months. We're going even higher. So our dispatchers provide a really high level of service, and they get all the units out in over 40 fire stations in a very timely manner to provide needs to the, not just Glendale, the citizens of Glendale, but citizens in all 11 cities. So they do a really outstanding job, and thank you for recognizing Verdugo Fire Communications.
Well deserved. Thank you. You may go home now if you wish. Oh, back to work, yes.
And
Well, I don't know, maybe they're
congratulations
off
to
duty. I
Mr.
don't-
Scoggins on his recent promotion.
Great. Next, please.
Congratulations.
At 3C is appointment of Mr. Rodney V. Khan to the Parks, Recreation, and Community Services Commission.
So moved. Second?
Okay, I do have one card. Herbert Bolano, 2 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor Weaver, members of the City Council, City staff. May I have an extra minute? I want to add a couple of things that are pertinent here.
Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Rodney Khan has, I think is known in the city as the premier consultant to land developers. It is my understanding that he may have at this very moment close to 20 different projects now in the pipeline that he is representing. I know Mr. Khan from my participation in the Downtown Specific Plan, and during those proceedings, I had an opportunity to try to bring the issue of parkland in South Glendale many times, especially in the area of the 220 acres of the Downtown Specific Plan. My attempts to try to bring the subject of a large urban park, I would say that the best way I can say it is it was thwarted. The issue was never truly taken up. I kept bringing it up, and I never saw an advocate within the developer group or within Mr. Khan himself to promote or to take on that issue of development of large parkland in southern Glendale, precisely where the Downtown Specific Plan is. So I take this as a significant conflict of interest. Now, I try to think if there was any possibility of a positive out of this particular nomination, and the only thought that I came up with was that if we decide to use Central Park and develop that as a public-private type entity, where we try to bring in corporate money to develop Central Park as a significant urban place for the community, then all his contacts with all of these very, very wealthy developers might come in handy. But I have to take a look at his private personal gain, his financial gain, in promoting whatever land is available towards his clients. So I don't believe, when I have this particular choice, that I can come up with a potential benefit that he may promote a significant urban parkland for downtown Glendale. So at the very least, I would like to suggest that because we have elections and we still have over an hour and a half, that you give an opportunity to perhaps a new council to make a decision on this issue, because it's that relevant. Parkland has been a major issue in this campaign, and I ask for your courtesy to postpone this at least until we are able to form a new city council. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, it's been moved and seconded.
Well, I have a question.
Najarian?
I think the point at least deserves an inquiry from our city council, our city attorney, and that is the issue of a conflict. And first, let me say I know Rodney Kahn to be a fine, involved citizen, father, and husband in the community, and he has obviously been before us several times to present projects. Does his role as a representative of a land developer in any way on its face present a conflict to his role as a potential parks commissioner?
Answering the question, excuse me, as you put it, on its face, no. There could be on a case-by-case basis a situation that comes before the Parks, Recreation, and Community Services Commission where he may have to conflict himself out because of a potential financial conflict of interest, but those are very fact-intensive, and we analyze those on a case-by-case basis.
And the city attorney representative to that commission would, of course, give, as they do all our commissioners, give them a briefing on ethics and conflict of interest and be available should any particular question arise.
It'll either be myself or Mr. Garcia or Mr. Grant. We don't, well, Mr. Grant is assigned to the Parks Department to provide them with advice. We do not staff that commission on a regular basis, but we do provide, along with Mr. Chapchin, a booklet of materials which includes not only their duties and responsibilities and obligations, but also conflicts of interest, Brown Act, and the like. And we can certainly provide Mr. Kahn with both individually and collectively the entire commission, if it's Mr. Chapchin's desire, a program on conflicts of interest. And we're available to answer any questions, and we've always advised them, if they're, when in doubt, contact our office.
Mr. Quintero?
Well, let me say, on the Planning Commission, on the Board of Zoning Adjustments, or on the DRB, I think because of the nature of his work, an appointment wouldn't be appropriate. But for this commission, I think there is no conflict, and if there is, then he would recuse himself from any particular issue, just like so many other commissioners do in the city.
Any other comments? Okay, been moved and seconded. Roll call.
Councilmember Manukian, Najarian,
Yes.
Quintero,
Yes.
Yusefian,
Aye.
Mayor Weaver.
Aye. Next, please. Oh, wait, we're moving council comments to after
Oral communication.
oral communications.
That is correct. Next is item 5, consent items, including minutes. The following are routine and may be acted upon by one motion. Any member of the council or the audience requesting separate consideration may do so by making such request before a motion is proposed.
I
you.
move the consent.
I do have a card on 5B, so that'll be pulled. So the motion is on 5A and C.
Yeah.
Second.
Okay, roll call.
Council members Manukian, Najarian,
Yes.
Quintero,
Yes.
Yusefian,
Aye.
Mayor Weaver.
Aye. Please write 5B into the record.
5B is Director of Parks, Recreation, and Community Services regarding grant funding from the County of Los Angeles Area on Aging. At B1 is motion authorizing the city manager to execute a contract agreement with the County of Los Angeles Area Agency on Aging for Integrated Care Management Senior Program for fiscal year 2006-2007.
Thank you. Dr. Spiritu, 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Council, and staff. I am Dr. Richard Espiritu. I'd like to say that I am totally in support of executing this contract with the City of Glendale and this agency. However, I'd like to bring up a couple of issues here. There are 260 clients with a total sum of the grant and the matching funds of 15%, which translates out to a mere $367 per year, or $30.16 a month. I think this is well worth our expenditures. to get this contract in place. However, I'd like to ask a couple of questions. Reading the report, they talked about something that I was completely could not figure out what it was, and that was deep house cleaning provided by the youth agency. I don't have the slightest idea what that is unless they're taking out walls and cleaning in the basement. There is one other issue. Most senior citizens are covered by Medicare or Title 18. Disabled people who are under Medicare age are covered both by Medicare and Medi-Cal. This is regarding finance. How much money is being paid to the case manager? How much money is being paid for food? And how much money is being paid out for DME, durable medical supplies, such as grab bars? If there's a large percentage of this money being paid out to the case manager, I'd be more than happy to provide my services as the case manager for 1/3 of the cost that they're paying them. Thank you very much for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Excuse me.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, do you want to respond to the question of the matter?
I do. Let's wait till council comments. Okay. Okay, is there a motion on 5B?
So moved.
I'll second that, but I'd like to have some answers.
So let me ask George Chapchin.
You want to do them now rather than other council comments?
Yeah, this is an agenda item.
Well, that's right.
Yeah, sure.
Come forth.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor and council members. What I'd like to do is call Carolyn McCune, the project manager, or Carolyn oversees the project, and she can certainly answer all the questions for you.
Okay.
I recall a couple. One is, what is deep house cleaning?
Unfortunately, we go into some homes and find that there's been a lack of attention. It could be because the senior is unable to care for themselves. We've found animal droppings.
Okay, so it's really, really dirty homes.
Really dirty
All right.
homes. Could be a result of hoarding.
Okay. And then the breakdown of the budget, the various allocation of funds.
The budget is, the care manager that we have is shared between this program and our home delivered meals program, which is under our nutrition contract. So less than 50% of this is, I'd say it's closer to about 30% of this is staffing. The rest and the additional would be for actual purchase of services or equipment.
Answer all the questions. Mr. Najarian.
And do you need any volunteers? Do you accept volunteers in that position?
Certainly, we would love to have volunteers, and we certainly
I see
can.
a ready and willing volunteer in the back who I think is well-versed and certainly motivated to help the public on these
Certainly,
issues.
I'll get his contact information on my way out.
Thank you so much. No other questions? I guess do we do roll call? Sorry.
No.
Okay, roll call.
Council members Menuchyan, Najarian,
Yes.
Quintero,
Yes.
Yusefian,
Aye.
Mayor Weaver.
Aye. Next, please.
At 6 is oral communication. Discussion is limited to items not a part of this agenda. Each speaker is allowed 5 minutes. Council may question or respond to the speaker, but there will be no debate or decision. City manager may refer the matter to the appropriate department for investigation and report.
Dr. Espiritu? Oral?
He's talking to his new employer.
Ah.
He can be employed.
Not employed, let's say his new
He's doing it.
volunteer supervisor.
I did volunteer.
I'm not.
Okay.
I commend that. I commend that.
Mr. Mayor, City Council, staff, I am Dr. Richard Espiritu. And on behalf of myself and my family, I would like to wish every person here in the audience and at home, my Jewish friends, a happy Passover, and next weekend will be Easter Sunday. We wish you and your family a very happy Easter. Back in May of 2006, I raised the question about the jailhouse ADA compliant cells. Mr. Idesco and I finally did go to jail together, and we were talking about the drinking fountains in those cells. I think the jail administrator, Mr. Aldesco, and I were in full agreement that something had to be done. As of today, nothing has been done. I would also like to wish each and every candidate who is running for office today good luck and my best wishes to each and every one of them. Over the past 5 years, I have been called several things by employees of the city of Glendale. First time anything was ever mentioned to me was that I was a terrorist. The other one was I was a malcontent. Mr. Aldesco said I was extremely knowledgeable. And most recently, I was called a gadfly. For those who don't know what a gadfly is, because that's a kind of an old term, it means a person who is persistent, irritant, a constant annoyance. I have been coming in front of the City Council for the last 5 years, and God willing, if God doesn't intercede in my efforts, I will continue to come. And it's not going to be that easy to brush me aside. I'm happy to put some more time in with the City Council in addressing the issues. As far as the gadfly, I'm very proud to be considered a gadfly, because one of the individuals that was called a gadfly, I feel very proud to be in that category, and that was Socrates. Maybe if in 2 more years I continue to come, I may even have the opportunity to be called a city councilman, or maybe shortly after that, even mayor. And it'll be fun to see what happens at the next election, because we might have a fun and games. Take care. Happy Easter, and all of those a very happy Passover. Thank you very much. And on behalf of my family, I want to thank you once again, and God bless everybody.
Next speaker, Herbert Milano. Mr. Milano has left, at least temporarily. Okay, we'll go on with Nat Reed. Welcome back to Glendale.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. It was great to be back in Glendale. I'm here representing the 710 Freeway Coalition. I read in my Glendale News Press that there had been a workshop on the completion of the tunnel as an alternative for finishing the 710 freeway. The coalition was not notified of that, so I didn't know about it until afterwards, so was not able to participate. So I'm coming today to make some comments in regard to that. I hope that it was made clear about the impact on Glendale specifically. We know what the impact is on the region, that it's positive in reducing congestion. We know of the positive and negative effects on those 3 cities in the corridor. Glendale is bordered or bisected by 4 freeways. Each of those 4 will have a reduction in traffic on the completion of the 710. There will be a reduction of traffic on the 5, a reduction of traffic on the 2, a reduction of traffic on the 134, and a reduction of traffic on the 210 west of the 2. There will be an increase in traffic on the portion of the 210 between the 210, 710, 134 interchange and the 2. It's a very positive benefit to Glendale. Second, I doubt that it was mentioned, but you should know that all of the polling done in this region shows an overwhelming support of your voters, of the constituents, for completion of the freeway. The 43rd Assembly District is 3-1. Voters are 3-1 in favor. Senate District, 3-1 in favor. The Congressional District, 2-1 in favor. You should know, if they have not already asked, that they will be asking the City of La Cañada Flint Ridge for solidarity from the City of Glendale for their particular interest in the 710 issue. It will increase traffic through La Cañada by about 17%. They would like your support of them in opposing the tunnel. You would be siding with them and agreeing to increase traffic in Glendale for the sake of reducing it in La Cañada. And I cannot imagine that if there were a proposal to reduce traffic in Glendale that would increase traffic in La Cañada, and you went to them and asked for their solidarity, that they would throw in with you. There's also a suggestion that instead of connecting the two stubs, the 4.5 miles, that this ought to be so-called route neutral, that you should look at alternatives for running the freeway other places instead of connecting the two stubs. And one of those suggestions is to run that freeway from Cal State LA to Glendale. So instead of 4 freeways that would have increased congestion, you would bring a 5th freeway to South Glendale. Although the major proponent of that route was defeated in the South Pasadena election, it is a call that has been taken up by others. I want to commend Councilmember Najarian in his representation of the region and of Glendale on the MTA. He voted in favor of increased study of the tunnel so that we have the facts on the table, so that we can make an informed decision. He also was successful in including Glendale at the table on the advisory panel for the tunnel study. So both of these actions on the part of Councilman Najarian benefit Glendale. We'll be working with the council, working as a council and with you individually to furnish you data and information that support the advantages to Glendale, overwhelming advantages to Glendale of completing that 710 freeway. And I thank you, Mr. Mayor, for the time. It's good to be back.
Thank you. Mike Nagel, followed by Bonnie Adams. Mike Nagel and Bonnie Adams.
Good evening, members of the City Council, Mr. Mayor, and City staff. My name is Mike Nagel. Last week, Bonnie Adams referred to the fact that there's not a single audible crossing signal here in Glendale. And Mr. Zern responded afterwards that there were 2 that were under testing. One of them, he said, was on somewhere on South Chevy Chase, on the south side of the city on Chevy Chase. Well, I've checked every intersection that's got a visible signal at San Fernando, Central, Brand, Adams, even the crossing between Adams and Boynton. And not a single one of those signals has any audible signal at all. I'm just curious which it is. There's not between the city line with Silver Lake and the 134. Is there a single audible signal anywhere? Perhaps Mr. Zern has been misinformed, but in doing so, he's passed that misinformation on to the city, and I really would like clarification of that. Thank you.
I'm Bonnie Adams. The first thing I'd like to say is about the meeting this afternoon with the Section 8, for the Section 8 budget on, and for 7 and 8. As we all know, we got the amendment to the ordinance for passed that gives a discount for the utility tax from GWP to 55 and over instead of just 65 and over. Well, that's good in and of itself. However, since GWP isn't really losing any money because they have raised the rate so high, they're going to make up, they're really not doing anybody any favors. I just like to say that if we have to pay, then Section 8 should bring the electricity allowance, the utility allowance up that they give their Section 8 people, because they're not, I mean, they should go up too on the allowances that they give us, as well as they should raise their allowance. Okay. The other thing is, after we left this meeting last week, we went to Pacific and Glen Oaks. Mr. Zern, we called your bluff, okay? I don't know, I'd like to know who these phantom blind people are that you're working with. There are no audible signals. We've checked every place on that street. We went to every signal on that street. Now, I was with the boys when we all went. I was with Mike and Dr. Espiritu. We went to that particular corner because we were going to go to Jack in the Box anyway. But the reality is, I mean, I'd like to know who you're testing. I'd like to know what you're testing. I'd like to know where you're testing and how you're testing. And whom are you testing? 2 people? That's a lousy cross sample. And especially since you have other cities that have all kinds of audible signals. It doesn't, I mean, that's a stall tactic to me. It's been a year. These audible signals, you could have high school kids put a buzzer and a bell. I mean, what's the difference? It doesn't, the sounds, and you're just stalling. And I'm really upset. There are intersections that even with a sighted person with me, I'm afraid to cross. Now, I'm coming in here in the fall with a guide dog. As soon as I can get down to the school, I'm going to bring back a dog who's going to be just as afraid to cross those streets as I am. And they're dangerous. And people in L.A. and Glendale don't care how they drive. But I'm not stupid. I mean, when I heard what the comment was, what you said, Mr. Zern, I really was upset, because it shouldn't. You're making things more complicated than they should be. And I really would like this to get the ball rolling and get the signals installed. You still got the old lights. Not even every box has been changed where when you press the button it squeaks or beeps or whatever it does. You still got the old boxes in there. They should be changed. When you press a button, you should be able to hear that it's activated, and the light should go on up top that it's been activated. Now, I can't see the light, but I can hear the squeak. That doesn't necessarily prove anything unless there's an audible signal to go along with it.
30 seconds.
So let's get the ball rolling on this. And I, by the way, am gadfly pro tem, so I'd like to be considered that. I would, And if I'm a malcontent, so be it. Thank you.
Margaret Hanlon, followed by Sharon Wiseman.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, city staff, the audience out there. Number one, a couple of things that my name is Margaret Hammond, and I'm probably the supreme gadfly from all I've heard. And at some point, I can remember when I was chosen, I think it was 102 out of 103, like I said, one up from the goats that were cleaning the hillside. But that's all right. If you want to call me a goat that I'm wanting to clean up things in Glendale or care about Glendale, they thought it was a great idea for the goats to clean up the hillsides, so I'm hoping people feel the same way about me. One of the things I would like to bring to your attention at this time of the year, I was at a friend's we went to Newport Beach, and it was at the American Legion down there, and they are doing a baby shower for the few, the proud, the expecting, meaning these are wives of servicemen and the service women who are expecting. Sort of a shock. I keep thinking, gee, what would they look like in maternity uniforms? But anyway, and I brought you these, and it's going to be April the 22nd, and they're looking for gifts of any kind, material gifts, financial gifts, and these will go to the servicemen, as wives and families, and the service women who are expecting. And they get by on a shoestring. They really do. I meet some of them. We meet some of them down there at the American Legion. The other thing is, on the thing about La Cañada, what are we going to do? Throw La Cañada to the wolves to save ourselves? Because they're a small little city and probably don't have a lot of people that can fight back. I have a lot of friends in La Cañada. I'll help them any day of the week to fight. That's not fair to throw that. There's so much traffic there now, and you know how many schools are along that freeway. There are tremendous, I don't know, maybe 10 or 12 schools. Just off that freeway. If you take and put more traffic in there, I'm telling you, whatever it takes, I'll help them fight it. I think it's horrible to throw them. Why should a few wealthy people down in South Pass get away with keeping their homes and ruining the quality of life for people in La Cañada? That's not fair. They're our neighbors. They're part of our community. And the other thing I'd like to say is about, for instance, this time of the year having goodwill. For instance, churches need to promote goodwill amongst themselves. Got a problem. With the Glendale Presbyterian, the lot that they have used for many years as their parking lot was given to them by the city, was given to the ASLA by the city to put on a 40,000 square foot building. Now, they would have liked to have purchased that lot. They were never given that opportunity. That's not right. Why weren't they notified? They were the neighbors next door to it. They need it in that area. They have schools, they have churches, they have senior programs, and a whole lot of other things. And anyway, the parking in that area is horrendous. You've already given the parking that's supposed to be going for that Maryland. You've given that to the SALA. You've already given it to other people in the area, the merchants, the banquet halls, the two of them that have no parking, the Brandview and the Royal Palace, have no parking, use everybody else's parking, even so far as to be that they were given part of the public library for parking for their valet parking. I mean, I still want to see something about that area. How many of those parking spaces are going to be double and triple promised? That is not right. And I thought redevelopment money was supposed to go to promote the good of a community, to promote good feeling. How can there be good feeling in this situation? No way. It's not right at all. It's not going to promote good feeling at all. And for a neighborhood, and to use the money for something like that. I mean, it was $5 million for the building, plus the free building, plus. And then what the church is going to have to endure, and what the ASL will have to endure as feelings in the neighborhood of conflict and disruption. I don't think it's right. I really don't. I'm very sorry to say that, but I think this is one plan that really should have had more inspection and looking at the parking and the congestion. I couldn't even get up Glendale Avenue today. I tried coming up Louise Street. I couldn't get up Louise Street, and this is at 3:30. It was horrendous, the traffic, and I thought, oh my gosh, this is not good at all. And we don't even have all these additional people. Pardon?
It's all the people going to the polls to vote.
Well, I don't think so. It was just plain traffic. Can I give these to you and maybe leave some of these, give them maybe to some of the offices? The girls in the offices might be interested in doing something about their sense of humor. Thank you.
Thank you. Sharon Weisman.
Mayor Weaver, council members, staff, and anyone listening, I'm Sharon Weissman from far north Glendale, and I guess I would have to be the trainee gadfly. I'd like to invite all of you to a Glendale Peace Vigil Film Forum event. We're showing The Ground Truth Friday, April 6th. Doors open at 7 p.m. at the Glendale Central Library, 222 East Harvard. This film is directed by Patricia Folkrod, and it is an intense examination of the war in Iraq, contrasting with the portraits of glory that have dominated recent war reporting. Her scrutiny of the effects of modern warfare on its combatants provide a much-needed wake-up call for all of us. Instead of the familiar images of heroic soldiers in battle and overjoyed returning soldiers embracing their families, we meet individual soldiers struggling to adjust when they come home with injury, amputation, or post-traumatic stress disorder. Although after Vietnam, post-traumatic stress disorder was widely recognized as a consequence of war, especially a war in which combatants and missions are cloudy, the military works to discourage soldiers from reporting they have PTSD. While America's poor treatment of veterans is not news to most, The Ground Truth makes it personal and real. The soldiers and Marines we meet in it are impossible to dismiss as war statistics. Part of the director's statement, I produced and directed The Ground Truth because I felt it was time to stop hiding behind the politics. It became clear while filming that the broken hearts and shattered lives that I was seeing were so invisible. The suffering was profound and pervasive. Whether people were for or against the Iraq War, I knew I had to show just how insidious the effects of killing in combat are, and to create a dialogue about how we can change our consciousness of killing. And the presentation is free. We ask for donations because we do have to rent the library, and there will be other information available from community groups. I repeat, it's April 6th, this coming Friday. Doors open at 7. And just as a note about the 710 completion, it's not just La Cañada. There's a part of Glendale up there, too, don't forget. Duke Majan Park, we're up there, too. And I do hope the council considers the whole region and does what's right in terms of traffic flow for everyone. But don't forget that part of Glendale's there, too. And also, I'd like to say happy spring to all the free-thinking atheists and not just religious people. A little recognition for us, too. And thank you all for your time. And you do have a little bit time to vote. If there's anybody out there that hasn't voted and you're registered, get up. Go out there and do it. Thank you.
Thank you. I have no more cards or communications closed. What is next, please?
Next is City Council and staff comments.
Mr. Zern, would you like to defend yourself?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Last week I had indicated that we were testing the devices. I think I specifically said I didn't recall the exact locations, but we had them in a couple different places. Well, I was wrong. We actually have 5 of them that we're testing. We have them at 2 places on Glen Oaks and Pacific. And these are individual devices, so some of them are just on a single leg of a four-legged intersection. We have them at Verdugo and Maple, Central and Stocker, and Verdugo and Broadview. We also have 7 devices included in the Americana Development Project, and we are installing 22 additional devices in and around the general downtown area, specifically around the Galleria, where they have a lot of foot traffic going into that particular facility.
And they're already in and operational?
The first 5 are.
Not the town.
No, the 7 that are going in with the Americana are part of the signalized intersections leading into those, so those will be included once the signalized the equipment is put in. The ones around the Galleria we'll be putting in probably over the next 6 to 8 months as we upgrade signals and do some other additional work. I've been to each and every one of these. I haven't been out there in a couple of months, so let me make sure that they're all fully operational, but we were using a device that had a clear audible signal of when it was clear to walk.
Thank you. Are there any other council comments? Yes, Mr.
And when you say being tested, how are they being tested other than installation? Anything else that you do?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Quintero, we are working with a mobility consulting firm that deals with sight-impaired individuals to try to improve their quality of life and their mobility. There's 2 individuals, and these are 2 folks who travel quite a bit in the city. They work, they walk, We thought those would be good folks to test it. They're out every day. They're doing their shopping. They're doing their business. So we tailored these to a great deal to their routes because they were willing to test them and give us feedback and talk to us about what was good, what wasn't, and how effective they thought they were. So the consultant approached us. We thought it was a good way to at least initially test them. We certainly can expand that test. And we were getting good feedback from actual users.
And Mr. Najarian.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I just want to briefly respond to those issues regarding the 710. Number one, I am acutely aware that the 210 does come through part of the city of Glendale, our neighboring community of La Crescenta, and both the La Cañada folks and further on to the Tujunga Sunland area. It was again, we spoke about this previously, but my vote to proceed with the $5 million from the MTA is to make sure we get the facts on this and not play quick and loose with what the effects will or will not be. Without those facts, any sort of objection or rallying proposing this tunnel would be, I think, just cheerleading. And we're not here to cheerlead. My role is to look at the facts, try and see what the impacts would be, and work with all the cities in my corridor, which include La Cañada, Glendale, Burbank, Pasadena, and Margaret is gone. Oh, Margaret's here. My parents live in La Cañada. My brother lives in La Cañada, although sometimes I shoot a stray barb and arrow at the folks in La Cañada. They are our neighbors, and their best interests are certainly going to be at the forefront of any sort of decision I make. And when it comes to that point, I will be coming back to council and the community with a full explanation of what's out to get everyone's input on that.
Thank you. Any other comments? Fine. That's the end of comments. What's next?
I would just like to add that people do have an hour and 10 minutes to vote before the closing of the polls at 8 p.m. Just want to thank the city staff that has been there for us today in troubleshooting and monitoring all the locations. They've done a fantastic job. I'm just humbled to be working beside these people as my colleagues here in the city, and I want to thank them and thank everyone who turned out to vote.
You should be able to get to bed by about 4 tomorrow morning. If you're lucky. Okay, what is next, please?
Next is 8, which is action items. At 8A is city attorney regarding ordinance providing for the presentation of claims otherwise exempted by the California Tort Claims Act. At 8A1 is ordinance for introduction.
Mr. Yusefian?
Mr. Mayor, I would like to introduce the ordinance. I will introduce the ordinance, but as I told Mr. Howard, I'm going to ask him to explain to us in plain English language what this means.
Oh, we'll never get that out of him.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council,
That's why he has somebody else.
Since you have so little confidence in lawyers expressing themselves in plain English, we're going to give Deputy City Attorney Bobby Aldesco a shot at this. Bobby is the architect of this ordinance, and I think he can and will explain it to you in plain, understandable English what it does.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, Councilmember Yusefian, basically, in order to file a claim against the city nowadays for a tort action, a person would have to file first a claim. The claim is reviewed for up to 45 days. If the city provides a determination for the claim after 45 days, at that point the person has a period of 6 months to file an action against the city. What this particular ordinance does is that it takes those claims that are otherwise exempted from the Tort Claims Act and allows the city to get its own procedure going, which is very similar to that of the Tort Claims Act. In fact, it's identical to it. But then, in this fashion, it would require other entities, such as the City of Los Angeles, such as the County of Los Angeles, other local agencies, and various other parties with specific claims that are otherwise exempted from the Tort Claims Act to go through the claim procedure. And basically, what we're doing is we're just establishing a level playing field for all claimants, whether or not their claims have otherwise been excluded from the Tort Claims Act. The Tort Claims Act and the legislature allows all the cities to do so, and in fact, most cities, or a vast majority of cities, both in Southern California and across the state, have adopted this particular type of ordinance in order to allow for their own council and for their own bodies to review claims that are made to the city.
So what does tort mean?
I was about to ask that question.
That's the word
So
we
the
don't-
public is watching. What is a Tort Claim Act?
Okay. Well, the Tort Claims Act involves not just torts, but it also involves contract claims and claims for money and damages. But basically, a tort, a general tort, is any kind of injury to an individual that arises out of either intentional action or negligence, and it would have a monetary component to it.
So it's an injury claim.
It's an injury claim.
Injury or property damage. We sometimes call it a civil wrong as opposed to a criminal wrong. So it's the type of case that somebody can go in. The best example and easiest example is a rear-end accident is a tort, where someone inadvertently strikes the end of your vehicle. That's considered a tort.
In other words, there's no criminal intent involved.
There's no crime. It's strictly a negligence cause of action. It's a civil wrong.
Against person or property.
Person or property.
Okay, now I understand tort.
If there is a criminal wrong, that doesn't preclude the person from also filing a tort claim, too.
Correct.
Let's not have anybody out there think that they can get away with it.
Okay.
Okay.
I guess that does it.
Thank you.
And the ordinance has been introduced.
Is there any new business?
No.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
At 6:55 p.m. An hour and 5 minutes to go vote, folks.